Hi there, my name's Craig. I'm the head instructor at Ottawa Swordplay, and this video is an introduction to our beginner swordplay system. We're starting a new series of videos that will go through our basic program, and I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background on what it is we actually teach. So the system that we teach was developed by a German swordmaster named Johannes Liechtenauer, who lived sometime at the end of the 14th century or beginning of the 15th century. We don't know very much about his life, but his students continued to teach and use his system for over 100 years. And they wrote down all kinds of information about their lessons and their fighting. So we teach what we have learned from these sources. One of the things that is a little bit unusual about Ottawa Swordplay in particular, or about me as an instructor, is that I started researching Liechtenauer's system with one of the somewhat later masters, Leckuchner, who was actually a master of messerfechten. He taught the grosse messer, or the big knife, which is not a very well-known weapon in modern times. It's much like a sword, but the system was used the same way as they used for the longsword. At Ottawa Swordplay, we do focus on the longsword, but a lot of our teaching is informed by what I have learned from Leckuchner as well. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the longsword. We usually train with what we call Federschwerts, or feather swords, and these are what late medieval, early Renaissance German training swords looked like. They were intentionally blunt like this, and they tended to be a little bit lighter, although only a little bit, than regular swords. And so for our purposes, when we talk about the longsword, we are talking about the sword meant to be used in two hands, and we like to have space between our hands here, or the ability to have space between our hands anyway. There is some speculation that longsword is not actually a definition of the sword, but of how you're holding it. So I'm holding the sword long rather than holding a longsword. But for our purposes, we just refer to it as the longsword. Now, I'm not going to dwell too much on this, but the longsword has different parts of it, and it is useful to understand what they are. So this is the pommel. This is the grip, and we have the crossguard. This here is called the schild, which just means shield, and it was part of the historical training swords. And then, of course, we have the blade. The groove down the blade is called a fuller, if there is one. Not all of them have one. And we've got the tip. But we also have the divisions of the blade. So from the middle of the blade to the crossguard is the strong of the blade, and from the middle to the end is the weak of the blade. And for now, just accept that as what they're called, but it will become evident why they are called that. Now, there is another distinction that is important for us, which is about the two edges. These swords tended to be sharp on both edges, and we have the leading edge, which they called the long edge, and the reverse edge, which was called the short edge. And my understanding is that this is because of the grosse messer, where the leading edge was sharp for the full length, and the reverse edge was only sharp for a short section. And this would be held in one specific orientation. With the longsword, right now, the way that I'm holding it, this is the long edge and this is the short edge. If I flip it around in my hand, well, this becomes the long edge and this is the short edge. It's just about the way that it's held in the hand. However, there are techniques that we do that use the leading edge, or the long edge, and there are techniques that use the short edge, the reverse edge. So it's important to understand those distinctions. Our next video is going to be about how to properly grip the longsword, so we'll see you there.